Okay, let's begin again. We are going to talk about the transformational model of social activity today, developed by sociologist Anthony Giddens and philosopher Roy Bhaskar. So let's share it in the first place. Where are you? Yes, this one. The main topic of this discussion today will be this idea, the importance of functionalism as a social theory. But before that, we should start from where we have left last time. We have been talking about the transformational model of social activity by Bhaskar and Giddens, developed by these two thinkers simultaneously. And the idea is, yes, that's better, I guess. Again, unintended consequences of social action is the basic mechanism in the reproduction process of social structures. So the idea is simple, but important, that people do not create society, for it already exists, and it is a necessary condition for human activity. Human beings act by virtue of the existing social structures, relations, or institutions, and these institutions, relations, in turn, will reproduce themselves through human activity, through intentional human activity. So this is the graphic representation of the whole process. First, we have this, we can start from here, for example. So these social structures, relations, or institutions, doesn't matter, are the unacknowledged conditions of action. Because of them, people can act. So this action, of course, is intentional action. So it depends on the motivation of action, rationalization of action, and the reflexive monitoring of action. And on the basis of this intentional action, these actions will have some unintended consequences that the individuals do not plan or think about the consequences of their actions. Then within this process, kind of circular process, individuals actually reproduce social structures, and sometimes they transform these structures. That's why it's called transformational model of social activity. So another simpler graphic representation of the idea is this again. So there's the society in the beginning. Society is the starting point and the end point at the same time. So we start from the society, social collectivities in general, social relations, social institutions, etc. And through socialization process, individual define herself, and also individual can act upon nature and within the society through interaction with other individuals in the society. So basically, individual is influenced by the society through the socialization process in this case, but at the same time, individual through her actions, or individuals through their actions, will reproduce and sometimes transform the society as a whole. So the relationship between individual and the society is a kind of complicated, or better, dialectical process. So this is another idea. It is not very good, but I'm going to put this into the Google Classroom so you can check it. Another idea. So individuals, human beings in general, must act within some multiple systems. First of all, we live within a human cultural system. The importance of culture, remember, it's a hermeneutical notion in general. And then as a general framework, we have the human social systems. These whole systems are intended to be presented as concentric circles, as you can see. Cosmological systems actually encompasses the all. Then there are narrower systems like life support systems, human material systems, human social systems, and human cultural systems. Within this, human beings interact with each other, with other individuals. They also interact with the society as a whole, or social structures, social relations, and also the material systems, nature in general, and that also includes these life support systems. And of course, we live in a planet which is in the universe, etc., etc. So that's the basic idea. So on the basis of this, we can say that individuals are four-planar beings, to use Bhaskar's own expression. So the first plane is the inner being. It's about the identity, intentionality, and these kinds of things. And then we have in the second plane, or in the third plane here, if you start from above, we start from below actually, social structures. Social structures form the general framework within which interpersonal interactions occur, and also society also exists within nature, so there should be, in terms of human action, some interactions with the nature. You know, this idea is similar to that of Marxian relations of production. Relations of production are at the same time social relations among individuals. Commodities are social relations, so there are numbers of individuals who participated into this process. They also participate in the production of the social relation that we call commodity, and also capital. So through these social relations, through the reproduction of social relations, capitalism actually reproduces itself. So on the one hand, these interactions will occur among individuals. But at the same time, these relations also take the form of relations or interactions with nature, because we are talking about production, not only in the sense of the production of goods and services, but the production of human livelihood, to use Polanyi's word. So we actually try to realize our own potentialities through these kinds of interactions within nature. So when we talk about relations of production, we actually mean that we mean, in the first place, social relations among individuals, and at the same time, we also mean that relations of individuals or society in general with nature. So this is again a dialectical process, and more, I don't know if you can see it, but this is the idea of four-planar beings. Maybe this another is better, I guess. So when we talk about the four-planar social being, we mean individuals, human beings in general. It revolves around the idea that every social action, we should say, happening or event occurs in at least four planes. The plane of material transactions with nature, the plane of social interactions between people, the plane of social structures sui generis, and the plane of the stratification on embodied personality. So when we talk about social theory, we should consider actually all of these four planes, material transactions and interactions with nature, and other kinds of interactions with society, within the society, with other individuals. And also personality is important. When we are going to talk about the role of ideology in the reproduction of social structures, we will return to this issue again. So this is the basic idea. But everything starts from, again, this transformational model of social activity. Social structures are both unacknowledged conditions of action and also their unintended, unplanned results or consequences. As an example to this idea, we can, let me see, was it here or nope? Where are you? Okay, we can talk about Hayek. Hayek is very interesting actually in terms of social theory. But before this, we can again return to this thing, this social matrix, so to speak. Remember, we have two rows here, holistic visions and individualistic visions. And also we have two columns, explanation in terms of explaining the cause and effect relations in society, or understanding, interpretation, interpretive understanding. Or this is the idea of hermeneutical insight. So from a holistic perspective, when we talk about explanation, we should consider the behavioral systems. What kind of systems are we talking about here? The market mechanism, for example. You know, in this idea of the systems theory in general, societies or other social institutions or relations can be seen as mechanical systems. You know, the idea of unintended consequences, which is very functional in the emergence of the invisible hand. Usually, economists talk about these kinds of systems theory. You know, market is a system, market system is to be reproduced on the basis of intentional human action, but there will be some unintended consequences of these intentional actions, which is the reproduction of market mechanism. Market is like a machine. This is the heritage of the Newtonian physics, actually. You can see the whole universe, so to speak, as a kind of giant machine. And in this machine, there are different parts, and each part is to be defined by its function. You know, for example, Hayek, when he talks about the function of the market system, he says that the market system exists because of the fact that it is a useful device that collects, process, and disseminate the piecemeal information. What I mean is, you know, I, as an individual, for example, I don't care about the reproduction process of the capitalist market mechanism. In general, all I care about is my own individual expectations, individual wants, individual satisfaction, etc., right? So each of us has different pieces of information, and these pieces are very small. That's why they're called piecemeal. So, but the market mechanism, through the interaction between demand and supply, will collect these information, and the basic function of the prices in this mechanism is to reflect these information that was processed and disseminated by the market. What I say is something like this. For example, I'd like to eat some ice cream. So there are many people like me, and we express our demand, so to speak, through buying some ice cream, and this will create some signals to the entrepreneurs, and these entrepreneurs will process these signals and increase the supply of ice cream. So on the basis of this, just because I want to eat some ice cream will contribute to the reproduction of the market system. So the basic function of the prices in a market system is to express these informations. So market as a giant machine that can be seen as a kind of collecting, processing, and disseminating information. This idea was developed by Friedrich von Hayek in 1945 in his famous article, The Use of Knowledge in Society. So this is a very interesting thing, but in this idea, in this representation of the capitalist society or capitalist system, the idea is that each social relation or institution is to be characterized by its function. What I mean is simple. Why do we have a market mechanism? Because the answer, the market mechanism collects, processes, and disseminates this information, piecemeal information at the hands of different individuals. So it's a giant machine that would create some kind of order. So there's a machine here, and the relationship within the machine between the parts is to be characterized again by their functions. So this is the idea of systems theory. You know, the systems theory is usually associated with the idea of functionalism, and to which I will return shortly. So on the basis of this, this is one idea. In terms of the understanding the hermeneutical character of society, we have the idea of games. You know, society or social relations can be seen as games or similar to the games, and games are to be created and reproduced. They are constituted, in short, by the rules. So the basic objective of the scientist or social thinker must be to understand these social rules. Again, we have a holistic understanding here. But on the other hand, if we look at the second row, individualism, we know that basically the whole neoclassical tradition is based upon the idea of methodological individualism. There are agents, you know, agents have some intended actions on the basis of their satisfaction idea, satisfaction objectives. So through these actions of individuals, we have, again, through the unintended consequences, we have a kind of invisible hand. Again, individualism argues that we should start from the individual, from the level of individual, if we are to understand society or social systems in general. Again, there's an hermeneutical version of this idea. Now, this time we can talk about the actors. You know, we are like actors. Actually, we are playing some roles, fulfilling some roles within the society. So again, a hermeneutical understanding of society does not exclude the idea of individualistic thought. So we can start from the individual and go up, so to speak, to the social level, or we can start from this level of society and we can go down through individuals. So it doesn't, there are different possibilities in that. So in this case, another interesting example was that of Hayek's. And last time I mentioned Hayek, and he wrote in 1940s 2 articles entitled as Scientism and the Study of Society, Part 1 and Part 2. They are published in Economica. He was the editor of the journal at that time. And his position is quite interesting, I think. He developed some theses. These are presented by him. And the first thesis is about the invariance of human beings. Human beings are all the same. Human minds are alike, same stimuli will induce same reactions. This is almost a hermeneutic, enlightenment idea. We are all the same, we all have reasons, have the capacity or faculty of reason, so we act the same way. But here, this idea could be problematic if we consider the hermeneutical character of society and therefore the importance or influence of culture. Anyway, we will return to this. Thesis number 2 is hermeneuticism, basically. He argues in that article, in those articles, that there are no objective facts in the social or moral praxeological sciences. Praxeology is about values, basically. They are about individuals' beliefs, expectations, etc. So a corollary of this first one is social facts are constituted by individuals. And hermeneutic character of society and its sciences is important. Again, when we look at here to this matrix, we are again, where are we? I think we are like here, right? He talks about the importance of understanding, and also he's an individualist. So he may be talking about the actors, but at the same time, if you consider other writings of Hayek's, he also talks about systems, but he argues that the reproduction of systems, especially capitalist system, can be understood on the basis of intentional actions of individuals. The unintended consequences, in other words, will reproduce the social system. So it's a kind of blend of both a kind of explanation idea and hermeneutical idea. Again, the thesis number 3 here, dispersion of knowledge. Even though human minds are similar, knowledge and beliefs each individual has are different. This is the idea of piecemeal information We all have different parts of different bits of information. So there needs to be an agency that will be capable of collecting and processing and dispersing these piecemeal information, which is the market in Hayek's own understanding. Thesis number 4, methodological individualism. The proper method of the social science is methodological individualism, and Hayek argues that this is a natural corollary of the thesis number 2, which is the idea of hermeneutics. Social facts are constituted by individuals, and hermeneuticism is an important option in society. Again, we seem to be here, understanding and individualism. But again, thesis number 5 is the unintended consequences. Social science deals with unintended consequences of intentional action. So that's, again, the whole idea of invisible hands. By the way, Hayek in later years, in the 1960s and 70s, argues that social systems or market system proper was an evolving mechanism. Again, based upon the individual action, and these actions are to be based upon individual expectations, satisfaction of their needs or wants, etc., etc. But still, market system emerges on the basis of these intentional action through unintended consequences of intentional action. But still, social system or the market system itself evolves in time. So every time, this process of evolution is also a product of intentional individual action. So the idea that there are two different versions of this idea of unintended consequences. One can be interpreted. By the way, we have 10 minutes. So on the one hand, we can interpret what Hayek says as a kind of, or an example of system theory that is working on the basis of unintended consequences, but at the same time, it's a kind of hermeneutical social theory. So it's actually a blend of explanation thesis and the hermeneutics thesis, it seems. So again, the first corollary of thesis 5 is that large-scale phenomena, as unintended consequences of intentional action, are too complex to make predictions. Social systems are too complex to make prediction, and even, for example, Hayek does not like formal general equilibrium models because of this, because social processes, social systems, including market system, is too complex to be represented by a simple model. So on the basis of this mechanical model, you cannot make predictions. You can make predictions, but they will be wrong because of the complex character of societies and social systems. And also, second corollary of this unintended consequences idea, objectivism as opposed to subjectivism, collectivism as opposed to individualism, and historicism as opposed to the theoretical character of social sciences, are the basic sins of scientism committed in the study of society. So this corollary is very interesting and also important, and he's against the idea of scientism. Scientism here can be interpreted as the idea that, it's a corollary of the unity of method think. There's only one method for all sciences. There's no difference between social and natural sciences in this regard. So you can see society as a kind of natural system, for example, and naturalism is not only possible, but also necessary to understand social systems. And Hayek is against this idea of scientism, which is the product of positivistic thinking, actually. Maybe we should stop here and continue in the next class.